Everyone's talking about AI these days, right? This season on Compiler, we're diving deep into how AI is reshaping the world we live in. Join us for a new season of Compiler, an original podcast from Red Hat. Subscribe now, wherever you get your podcasts.
One of the hardest parts of getting older is feeling like something's off in your body, but not knowing exactly what. It's not just aging, it's often your hormones too. When they fall out of balance, everything feels off. But here's the good news. This doesn't have to be the story of your next chapter. Hormone Harmony by Happy Mammoth is an herbal formula made with science-backed ingredients designed to fine-tune your hormones by balancing estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, and even stress hormones like cortisol. It helps with common issues such as hot flashes, poor sleep, low energy, bloating, and more. With over 40,000 reviews and a bottle sold every 24 seconds, the results speak for themselves. A survey found 86% of women lost weight, 77% saw an improved mood, and 100% felt like themselves again. Start your next chapter feeling balanced and in control. For a limited time, get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com with code NEXTCHAPTER at checkout. Visit happymammoth.com today and get your old self back naturally.
Coming up on episode 373 of Wheel Bearings, we've got the Kia Sorento Hybrid, the Subaru Forester, the Hyundai Sonata Hybrid. Scout shows off their first two vehicles. Stellantis is going to try some semi-solid state batteries in a couple of years. Nexstar Energy starts building battery modules. Ford is cutting EV prices. High-speed trains are awesome. And Costco gets into fast charging. All that and more coming up next. Hello, this is episode 373 of Wheel Bearings. I'm Sam Abul-Samad from Guidehouse Insights.
I am Nicole Wakeland from Carbuzz.
And I'm Perry Stern from a whole bunch of different outlets. Including JD Power, Capital One, MSN, etc.
And thanks for joining us last minute, Perry. A few minutes before we were scheduled to start, Robbie pinged us, and he's got a little family emergency that he's got to deal with. So hopefully everything is okay for Robbie and his family. But it works out well, Perry, because you were in Nashville this week for the reveal of the Scout concepts, and we'll get to that a little later in the show. But let's start off with what have you been driving?
Who, Perry? Yes, go for it. Sorry.
Yeah.
I can, or whoever.
Yeah.
I'm in the 2025 Subaru Forester. They redesigned the car for this year, and so it's, structurally it's basically the same car, same engines and all of that. But it's well,
I mean, that's pretty much every Subaru built in the last several decades.
Yeah. Not that that's a bad thing necessarily. Yeah. I mean, when they redid the chassis with the new, global platform, it was one of the first times I'd actually really noticed the difference between a platform, because the car drove so much better than it did before. But it's Forester. I mean, it's proper Subaru. I was out driving around the dirt roads outside of Dexter here in Michigan, and it's just so stable, so easy to drive. It doesn't have a lot of power. It's got that CVT that kind of sucks whatever power there is. It does have a sport mode, which makes a little bit of a difference. But once you get used to it, it gets moving decently. It handles well. It's a nice car to drive, and be perfect all season car. I know no one's ready for winter yet, but I would have loved a little snow.
Well, I mean, you never know. I mean, wait till this afternoon. Could get some around.
This is true. Or it could be that thick with leaves, because the leaves are blowing like crazy.
Yeah. I think the new Forester is about the same size as the old one, right?
I think it's a little bit bigger. But yeah, for the most part, it's their, they have the Outback, which they call an SUV, but it's kind of a tall wagon, and they have Crosstrek, which is kind of a tall wagon. This is the one that actually looks like an SUV. And it has the space, since it is that boxy shape, it actually has a decent amount of room in the cargo area, and a lot of headroom in the back seat too. And it's a pretty useful car.
And it's a 2-liter, right? Or is it a 2.5?
I believe it's the 2-liter. Now you caught me because I was not ready. Oh. But I will check that.
Okay. And what about are there any changes to the infotainment system or anything like that for the new one?
This Forester adopted what they had already shown in the Outback and the Ascent, and so it has the tall screen, which is a huge improvement over the past one. It's much easier to use. It's a lot more clear to read. It's got the big icons on it. Puts climate control in the screen, which is not one of my favorite things, but
I'm with you on that. I don't like that either. The in-screen.
But there are buttons to raise and lower the temperature at least. So kind of a physical control. But yeah, I was trying to turn off the seat heaters because it was freezing when I got in this morning. But going over a bumpy road when you're pushing on the seat heater, it's hard to touch that little spot while you're going over a bumpy road.
That's why physical controls are the best for anything climate related.
They
are. Or volume, things like that.
Yeah.
I like physical controls.
Air vents.
I don't know.
Just going on record.
Air vents, yes. If somebody has a problem with air vent controls, I don't know.
I hate them.
Only everybody except a bunch of designers at Lincoln and Rivian and Tesla and Porsche.
What's wrong with those people?
They're broken. They're fundamentally broken.
Don't like it the way they have it. Grumble, grumble, grumble.
Yeah. Well, we will.
I believe I adjusted the vents several times during my drive today, just so you know.
And we will continue to grumble about in-screen vent controls until such time as there are none left on the planet.
Right. And then I'll stop grumbling about it, and I will we can toast your job well done, Sam, and we can move on.
Excellent.
So that gave me enough time to check. It is the 2.5 engine.
Okay, there we go. That's a good help there.
180 horsepower, which is, decent.
Yeah, it's not bad for a vehicle that size.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was getting, when I drove it home from the airport the other day on the freeway, at a decent clip, I was still getting, 28 miles per gallon, 29 miles per gallon. So it's pretty fuel efficient for a all-wheel drive SUV.
Yeah,
that's not a hybrid.
Cool. Anything else on the Forester?
I'd say I do like the new look. So they did give it a new style for the 25 model year, and it's got the narrow, sleek headlights, which has become a thing now because they can, and the larger grille. So it gives it a different look, but I think it looks a little higher end. And inside, they've got this material in front of the passenger. It's almost like it looks like a weave or with different, best way to describe it. I guess it has different angled panels, so it gives it almost a 3D look.
Oh yeah.
So it has a nice interior.
Yeah. It looks textured, like
that's the word I was looking for.
3D honeycomb effect. Yeah, because it's kind of the hexagonal shape. And you're right.
They're doing a nice job lately of, because Subarus don't have these like super delicate interiors because they have that whole rugged outdoor cars that we build. But I like that they're giving some sort of a little bit of texture and a little bit of visual impact to it, so it's not just boring. It's like, just because your cars can stand up to muddy dog paws doesn't mean that they have to be boring inside. Can you make them like a little bit pretty? And I feel like they're getting better about that.
Yeah, like when you go to the wilderness models, they have a lot of things like that where the cargo area has like the picture of a mountain emboldened on the mat.
Giant mat, yes, that will protect your car from like anything you could get. Like it's like you could put something that's truly wet. It's just going to like sit on those really deep grooves that cargo mat has. Yeah.
They're built for an active life.
Yeah. Active lifestyle, I believe, is the preferred marketing term, just in case you're wondering. Active lifestyle.
Yeah. I'll leave out that style and just go with life.
Okay.
Life. I don't like marketing terms. I noticed they still have, so they've got USB-C and a USB-A port and an aux port. So you can...
Yeah, they're one of the few that still have an aux port. I don't know who actually uses them anymore, especially if you have USB-A and C. But it does have wireless Android Auto, which is good. And it has the wireless charger. So, you can throw your phone in there and it makes it much more convenient than it used to be.
It's the aux port is for those do-it-yourselfers, that still have an old school iPod Classic that they have opened up and put a fresh battery in and replaced the little mini hard drive with some flash memory. Got a memory stick and put it in there, so they're running off of that and have all their music without having to be connected to anything.
My daughter still has a 2009 Impreza that has RCA plugs in it.
Oh, really?
Which she then connected to an aux plug to plug into her phone at the time that would run the music through the system.
Wow.
Wow.
That's vintage.
Yes. Yeah. In the good old days.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on the Forester?
No, I think it's certainly a good choice in that market, and just like every other Subaru, the all-wheel drive system works great. On those gravel roads, full throttle, and it spins a little bit, and off it goes, perfectly aligned. It's they're great all-season cars, and they are great for that adventurous life or style or whatever you want to call it.
However you want to say it.
Well, and all three of us live in places that have 4 seasons, or at least 4 seasons. So a vehicle like this can definitely be useful.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, Nicole, what about you?
I have the Hyundai Sonata Hybrid, the 2024, which is a mid-size sedan, I think they call it. I like, they did some some updates, it's like a mid-cycle refresh, I guess maybe you'd say on this one. They changed the exterior styling. There's this light bar that kind of goes across the hood, like it's sort of right where the hood meets the grill, like right where, and it looks fantastic. It looks great even when it's not lit up. I really love that Hyundai hasn't phoned it in for their sedans. I feel like as some sedans, like they're not as big of a deal as they once were, right? Everyone's doing crossovers and SUVs. So they put a lot of time into focusing on making those look really good and making sure the design is spot on. But I feel like crossovers and SUVs kind of get this sort of like, meh, okay, they're the focus, and the sedans get forgotten. We forget about them, and they don't look that great, or they try to go so sporty that it's like, oh, it's scaring me. There's like too much happening in the front end. I love how the Sonata Hybrid looks. And the funny thing is, my brother-in-law was over yesterday, and as he was leaving, he saw it in the drive, and he's like, that's a really good looking sedan. I'm like, yes, you're right. That is a good looking sedan. So I wasn't the only one. Random brother-in-law opinion. He thought it was a great looking sedan too. So I appreciate that little refresh that they did. That refresh also includes in the back, if you've seen the Santa Fe is a Sesame Street episode dedicated to letter H. Like there's H's everywhere. Just H on anywhere you can plug an H into the design of the Santa Fe, they've done it. Well, they did like a little bit in the Sonata. It's kind of like if you look at the lights in the back, and it's sort of subtle, but you can see an H thing in the back of the lights. I appreciate that somebody was like, whoa, whoever's in charge of the H.
Let's tone it down just a touch.
Yeah, like dial it down just one notch, and we'll still do the H thing, but can we please not make it look like a Sesame Street episode? And I love how the Santa Fe looks, but it's just so much of the Santa Fe. So this one, it's a nice little design. Inside, it still there's only 2 trims of this in the hybrid. There's the SEL and there's the Limited. Both of them are pretty well equipped trims. Like it's because there's not 5, 6, 7 trims in this. It's not like you go from really bare bones to really fancy. You have moderately fancy and really fancy is what you get. I like how it looks inside. I mean, even the base one, you get things like automatic dual climate control and 8-way power driver's seat, 4-way passenger seat. The front seats are heated. There's a leather wrap steering wheel. So you get some cool stuff even in the base trim. Then you add in leather seating surfaces and ventilated front seats and rear sunshades when you get to the Limited trim. So either way, you get an attractive car, and Hyundai continues to do what they've always done, which is make a car that looks like you get more than what you think you're getting. You look at it and you think this car should cost $5,000 more than it really does, because the quality of the interior materials, the look, the style, the feel, all that. It's relatively roomy, especially up front. There's a lot of headroom and there's a lot of legroom up front. When it comes to the back seat, though, the rear legroom is a little on the short side. So I actually happen to have a chart sitting in front of me for this one. When you compare it to the Accord Hybrid and the Camry Hybrid, the Sonata 34.8 inches, the Camry 38, and the Honda Accord 40.8. So from 34 to, yeah, there's a big difference, like a couple of inches there between the Camry. But when you go up to the Accord, if you're going to have backseat passengers that are any more than kids, they can be comfy in the Sonata Hybrid, but it's not the roomiest rear seats. So you kind of got to look at your priorities and figure out, how often you're going to have adults riding back there and then choose accordingly. This year they have the upgrades on the inside include that they also have it's technically 2 screens, but they're doing that very common one display. So you have a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster and a 12.3-inch infotainment touchscreen. That's the base screen. So you get that same screen whether you go with the SEL or whether you go with the Limited, which I really like. Like when Perry was talking about, how they've upgraded, they have that long screen now in I think most of the Subaru lineup and most trims. There are still some base trims, and I can't remember which ones, Perry, that still have the dual screen for like the very base trim or something in some of their vehicles. And when you see that, it's like, ooh, like it just looks.
I know the Impreza has that.
Is that? Yeah,
I think base Forester does too. I
feel like there were a couple that it was, it is just like the base trims. Most of their lineups are getting the big screen, but when you see a small screen now, it really does make a car feel like outdated and less premium. I mean, everything could be really, a new addition, a new refresh, an all new, whatever. Those smaller screens are really starting to look old and just not great. So I appreciate that you got that 12.3-inch screen. And I like it when they put it, and Hyundai isn't the only one, when they do the one display. So instead of like this large screen sort of like stuck on the dashboard, like you took a tablet and just kind of, use some command strips and put it up there, that it actually is this one integrated thing with the instrument cluster. I think it makes it look a little bit more clean, and it gives you that sort of future vibe that it's nice one big screen. So I like what they did with the tech in it. You have a good amount cargo room. It does a little bit better than some of the other guys. It's a sedan. You're not buying a crossover or an SUV. If you need things that are going to be really weird and bulky shapes, you really need cargo. Don't buy a sedan in the first place. But if you do wonder, like, just how much can I tuck away in there? The Sonata comes in right in the middle this time. So the Camry is just 15.1 cubic feet. The Sonata is 16 and the Accord is 16.7. So those are all a lot closer, but the Sonata's in the middle. So in terms of cargo, not so bad. Power for this, it's a 2-liter 4-cylinder with a 39 kilowatt electric motor. You get a 6-speed automatic transmission. You get 192 combined system horsepower. And it's front wheel drive only. So I would not buy this here because I like an all-wheel drive car in New England, despite owning one that's rear wheel drive. That's just for funs. But for everyday, like having a front wheel drive car, if you really like it, the plus side is, and I will sing the praises of winter tires, much like I will sing the horrors of vents that are controlled in a touchscreen. Winter tires are amazing. If you really like a car that is front wheel drive or even rear wheel drive and you're worried about driving in the winter, stick a pair of winter tires on there and it's going to significantly improve your performance and keep you from slipping and negate a lot of the issues you might have. The only thing it doesn't overcome is, sedans and lower cars don't have the ride height, ground clearance rather. So if you're diving through a deep snowbank, your sedan's going to get stuck even if it has all-wheel drive because it just doesn't clear it. If you're driving in a crossover, you got a little more chance of going over it instead of into it. But the engine it's adequate. Sounds like I'm being snarky, but it's fine. It does a good job. It's enough to get you going. You'll have no problem accelerating. You can merge into traffic. There's enough power if you're on the highway and you need a little burst. Okay, you can get going, but it's not super responsive. You mash the gas pedal. It takes a second to say, oh yeah, okay, sure, I'll give you that power. So it's not especially engaging as a driving experience. It's very pleasant. It's very quiet. It rides nicely, handles nicely. It's all the nice. It's the Hyundai.
Which is probably perfect for a Sonata hybrid buyer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So exactly.
And if you want a sporty Sonata, there's the N line.
Right. So it's one of those things, It's always hard when someone asks you how a car drives, like, well, what are you looking for? Do you want a sporty car? This is not the one. Get this, get the N. Do you want a fuel efficient car? Then this is the one to get. So they do offer Sonata in a little variety of flavors. So you can pick the one that works for what your priorities are. I feel like for the Sonata Hybrid, your priority here is you want a reasonably priced, comfortable, attractive sedan that gets good fuel economy. And it does do that. The thing they dropped, and if you've looked at the prior years, they used to have a hybrid blue trim. Mm-hmm. The hybrid blue is gone. That was the most fuel efficient version of this car. And I had it done. The hybrid blue used to get 50, 54, 52 city highway combined. That's gone. And those were great figures, right? If you're just looking for fuel efficiency, that was fabulous. Now their fuel economy for both the SEL and SEL Limited is 44, 51, 47. That's still good fuel economy, but it's a drop from that blue. So you can't get what you used to be able to. And that makes it used to be it made the Sonata kind of a no-brainer if that was your priority, because it was so competitive and it was so well priced. But now, like the Accord Hybrid, I'm going to throw a million numbers out there, but the Accord Hybrid and the Camry Hybrid, they do better. Like for the most part, they're better options. The combined fuel economy on a Camry is 52. It's 47 on a Sonata and 48 on an Accord. So
it's important to keep in mind though that because of when we're talking about miles per gallon versus gallons per mile, it's the curve is nonlinear, and what happens is as miles per gallon goes up, for every extra mile per gallon you get, the actual amount of fuel that you save gets smaller and smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And so, up to about, mid 30s, 35, 37 miles per gallon, you get a lot of additional benefit in terms of fuel savings. But once you get up into the 40s and beyond, the incremental reduction in fuel consumption and how much money you're going to save on gas starts to taper off really fast.
Right.
So the difference between 47 miles per gallon and 52 miles per gallon is a lot smaller than, say, between 20 and 25 or even 30 and 35. So
yeah,
47 miles per gallon, you're probably not going to be doing notably worse, measurably worse than you would with 52 miles per gallon in a Camry.
And so it's not a bad deal. It's just sad that the other one isn't there. It makes me sad they got rid of the blue. I'm assuming not enough people.
I was going to say probably didn't sell all that high.
Yeah, I think the blue, had skinnier tires, less traction, didn't handle as well. All in the name of, saving a little bit here and there on aerodynamic drag and rolling resistance, just to get those extra couple of miles per gallon.
Right. And I'm sure Hyundai, they're not stupid. I'm sure they looked at it. They crunched, like you said, Perry, they weren't selling enough. If they weren't selling enough, to make it worthwhile to keep the blue in the lineup, why are we doing this if not enough people are buying it? Because it's extra money for them to have that configuration available. Get rid of it if it's not selling enough, and we still feel like we're going to do well enough with just the SEL and the Limited. So it's not like a deal breaker or something horrible. It's just something to note. If you wanted that higher fuel economy, go back 1 year if somebody has it, or buy a used one or something, and you can still get it. Overall, I like driving this. I think it's a nice vehicle. It's well priced. It's comfortable. It's a great highway cruiser. It's not going to win any races, but that's not why you're buying a hybrid anyway. And I think it's great if you're someone who still has a commute. You have to do a long commute back and forth. It's a nice, comfy car for a commute. Or if you're like just taking the family around on a weekend or whatever, it's got plenty of room. In terms of pricing, the SEL starts at $30,800. The Limited starts at $37,200. So even in its top trim, you're keeping it under 40 grand for a really fuel efficient, attractive, comfortable hybrid sedan. You know how we do destination? You're familiar? We guess the destination fee, Perry. I think you've seen it. You have to guess. So what do you think it is? What do you for the Hyundai Sonata hybrid?
I was just in the Hyundai Sonata N line, so I already know the answer.
Peter. You can come up with it.
I'm going to guess $1,295.
$1,150.
Ooh,
So,
what a deal.
Comparatively cheap by today's standards.
I was just writing, I can't remember what I was writing about the other day, but the destination, it was some luxury car. It was like $33.95. And I'm like, oh, we'd be horrified on wheel bearings. We'd never accept that.
Yeah. Well, when I had the Huracan Sterrato, it was like $3,400.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh yeah, it was a stupid amount of money, but
Yeah.
It is interesting to hear the difference between because I drove the Sonata Edline, and it's because it has all that attractive styling and everything, but you also get an extra 100 horsepower because it's, I think, 290 horsepower if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And I still got over 30 miles per gallon in it.
See,
which is still, I mean, it's really impressive what they're able to do, and I think. That new design, the style of the Sonata now just looks so good.
Right? Isn't it stunning?
And I had someone also, it's like, what kind of car is that? I mean, it was really surprised.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like, you want to look at body brain, you're like, it's just a mild-mannered Hyundai Sonata. This is not some like super high performance sedan. It's like, no, it's a Hyundai. Like, good for you, Hyundai, that people think your sedan.
Right. It's nice to look the part.
Right? Like you look good. Good job. So yeah. So I generally speaking, I like Hyundais. I feel like the company as a whole does a good job of delivering what it says it will deliver in its vehicles and its various trims. You get exactly what you expect just for a price that is less than you expect. And I think the Sonata Hybrid does that.
Everyone's talking about AI these days, right? This season on Compiler, we're diving deep into how AI is reshaping the world we live in. Join us for a new season of Compiler, an original podcast from Red Hat. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you feeling overwhelmed by hormonal changes? If you're a woman, you're not alone. With over 1,000 hormone disruptors in our environment, it's no wonder things can feel out of balance. On top of that, natural changes like PMS, menopause, and other life stages can leave you feeling tired, irritable, and trapped in a constant battle with your body. But here's the good news. You don't have to suffer through it. Hormone Harmony by Happy Mammoth is here to help. This herbal formula fine-tunes your hormones, balancing estrogen, testosterone, and even stress hormones like cortisol, which can contribute to weight gain, racing thoughts, poor sleep, and more. With over 40,000 five-star reviews and a bottle selling every 24 seconds, the results speak for themselves. Ready to feel like yourself again? For a limited time, get 15% off your first order at happymammoth.com using code NEXTCHAPTER at checkout. Visit happymammoth.com today and get your old self back naturally.
Owning a boat comes with a number of perks, like being able to fling your favorite fishing rod around. And here's another perk. Geico's boat insurance covers your boat and your belongings. And with specialist support from agents that are as passionate about boating as you are, there's so much value that you'll want to high-five someone. But not while you're holding your fishing rod. That's a prized possession. So hold on tight with both hands and keep it covered through boat insurance. Get more with Geico.
Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. We've updated the Wheel Bearings merch store, and now there's a whole bunch of new choices, new colors, new styles, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, hats, mugs, travel mugs, stickers, aprons, tote bags, you name it. You can get your Wheel Bearings merch at shop.wheelbearings.media. Go check it out. That's shop.wheelbearings.media. Excellent. Cool. Yeah, I was actually I was in Korea all this week. And, so obviously see lots of Hyundais and Kias and Genesis, as well as, various other brands. And actually didn't see that many Sonatas there. Really? What you see a lot of is Ioniq 5s. They're everywhere around there, but also the Hyundai Staria, which is
Staria.
The Staria.
What's it equipped to?
It's a minivan.
Yep.
I will drop it.
Oh, I see it. Okay.
Yeah. It's a very cool looking minivan.
It's kind of funky in the front. That is it's got this weird It makes me think of the future, but the future we would have designed in 1980. Something about the slope of the hood.
Yeah.
It's like if they had kept building the GM the Chevy
The
Venture,
Astro van,
it would eventually ended up looking like that. Yeah.
Or actually, I was thinking more the Ford Aerostar, kind of a modern Ford Aerostar.
Yeah, it looks good. It's just it's like weird. It's modern but throwback. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are used as like taxis and limos in South Korea. In fact, I rode in a Astaria on the way to the airport the other morning. So it's very comfortable, very roomy inside, and I think it looks kind of cool for a van.
It does look good.
The other thing that I saw a lot of, surprising amount of, is the Hyundai Casper, which is the little subcompact hatchback, and it is so cool. I love the way that thing looks. Yeah.
So I saw it. I was at the auto show. I was in Korea when they debuted that at the auto show there. It was so stinking cute, and it has all these like very cutesy touches. There was a smiley face on one part of it, like a little smiley face. It shows up on one of the pillars. I can't remember which one. It is the cutest stinking car. It will never work for a U.S. market. Like it's not coming here. I'm like, I want it to.
No.
I want it to. It's so stinking cute.
Yeah, and they have they have an electric version of it now that they just launched earlier this year.
Yeah.
I mean, as an alternative to something like the Mini Cooper SE, I think it would be a lot of fun. But it's never gonna get sold here.
I mean, somebody said I saw a report where somebody said they saw one in California, but I'm like, did someone just bring it here, or was it like I just can't see that.
Hyundai might have had one for some testing or evaluation, or it might have been some other company too that might have been benchmarking.
It could have been.
Or it could have been a Nissan Juke and they were confused.
That's true too. That's a possibility.
There's a good chance that could have been it too, Perry.
the other car I saw quite a few of that actually hopefully is coming here is the Kia EV3. And so that's their entry level EV. It's a technically a crossover. Yeah, it's baby EV9, and that's also again very cool looking. I had didn't get a chance to ride in one, but I did get a chance to sit in one, and even in the back seat, it is surprisingly roomy. I think that car, if and when they bring it here, which will hopefully be sooner rather than later, I think it'll actually do quite well because
it looks fabulous. Like it's the styling on it, like you said, it does look like a baby EV9. It looks really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So and that one, hopefully, there's been indications that it will go for under $30,000 MSRP. So I think that one could be a real hit here. But a car that they do sell here that I did get a chance to drive before I left for Korea is also a Kia, the 2025 Sorento Hybrid SX Prestige all-wheel drive.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, too much name. But this is Kia's midsize SUV that slots in below the Telluride, above the Sportage, and it's it has a third row, but really just fold the third row down, and just have a really large cargo area. The third row is really pretty useless in this thing, much as it is in like the Mitsubishi Outlander. But this has a similar hybrid system to what's in that Sonata, except the engine, instead of the 2-liter naturally aspirated engine, is a 1.6 liter turbo. It's got a 6-speed automatic. The electric motor in here is 59.3 horsepower. So about 60% more than what is in the Sonata. So the total combined output is 227 foot-pounds, or 227 horsepower, I should say.
Okay.
Which, the Sorento is a bigger, heavier vehicle than the Sonata. So the performance was probably probably pretty similar to what you experienced. They officially list the 0 to 100 kilometer, so 0 to 62 mile an hour acceleration at 9.1 seconds. So not a speed demon, but adequate. And it'll meet most people, almost everybody's actual needs in the real world. And because Hyundai's hybrid systems don't use an eCVT like a Toyota or Ford, it's a standard 6-speed automatic transmission in there, so it feels a little more natural. You never get any of that motorboating effect when you're accelerating, where it revs up to 4,000 RPM and sits there while the car accelerates and catches up to the speed. It definitely feels more pleasant, more natural to drive than a Toyota hybrid. Not quite as efficient, but it's adequate. It's officially rated at 34 miles per gallon, city, highway, and combined. I got about 30 in my driving, which slightly disappointing, but not it's not bad. 30 miles per gallon for a good sized vehicle like this was quite good. A Toyota Highlander, which is just ever so slightly larger than this, with the hybrid, it'll get closer to that 35 miles per gallon. So the Highlander is a little more efficient than this, but this is perfectly fine. I don't think anybody's going to be too disappointed with it. So for 25, like a lot of the other Hyundai and Kia vehicles, the Sorento did get a mid-cycle update. So the front end looks more like the Telluride now. So big rectangular grille, vertical headlamps. So it's got that similar kind of look to the Telluride. New interior, again, with the same type of panoramic display. So looks like one long curved strip of black glass when it's off, and then the center touchscreen and the 12-inch instrument cluster display. The seats very comfortable in this car. Very impressed with that. What else? Let's see. Yeah, I mean,
it's got
overall,
curved display screen too, right?
Yeah, yes, it's a curved display screen. It's got wireless Android Auto and CarPlay. It's the one that I had the second row captain's chairs. So that's in the Prestige. You get the captain's chairs instead of a bench seat. So nominally 6 passenger seating in this one, but like I said, if you're going to put anybody in the third row, they've got to be relatively diminutive of stature. 19-inch alloy wheels. As with all Hyundai and Kia vehicles, there's a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty, 5 years bumper to bumper for the rest of the vehicle. It's got some of the neat features like the digital rearview mirror setup. You got a digital camera mirror, which is nice in an SUV when you've got all those headrests up in the back or passengers in the back, so you can still see what's behind you. But it's also in the instrument cluster when you turn on the turn signals in the 2 gauges. You see camera view in the instrument cluster, so you've got the outside mirror view, but you also have the camera view, which is a nice add-on. So you can definitely, helps you to see the blind spots even better than what you can see with mirrors. Got all the usual features like Hyundai's highway drive assist, park avoidance, or parking collision avoidance assist. So automatic backup braking, reverse braking. So if you're backing up towards something, it'll slam on the brakes, and it will do it quite aggressively if there's something behind you. So as I was backing into my driveway, backing up towards my trash bin, I still had what I thought was a fair amount of clearance, but it decided you're close enough to that trash bin and slammed on the brakes. So heated and vented front seats, lots of nice features, which is good because this thing all in $49,090.
Wow.
Yeah. So not inexpensive
Yeah.
But nice vehicle to drive. Said this is not a sports car of mid-sized SUVs, but it's fuel efficient and reasonably roomy and attractive. You want to take guesses on the destination charge on this one?
$1,295.
I was going to go with $1,250.
Nicole gets it. It was $1,375.
Ooh, we were both low. Wow.
So this one, the one I had was finished in mineral blue, which was a nice color, very attractive color. So it was good. It was nice to drive for a week.
Very cool.
Yeah.
They're good looking cars.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the new style.
All right, let's talk about some of the stuff that's happened in the past week. Let's start with Scout. Perry, you got to go to Nashville. I was invited, but because I had already committed to going to Korea this week, I was not able to attend the
can't
Scout
do it
event.
all.
Yeah.
Yes, I was in the same boat. I could not be in two places at once, so I did not get to make it.
Yeah.
And it was the only place I needed to be, so I was there. It was interesting because when they first brought us in, they had a collection of early Scouts, the original Scout, with all of the owners, everything, including the very first Scout that came off the line and the very last Scout that came off the line, parked next to each other, which I thought was pretty interesting, to bracket the entire thing. And so, that first one came off, I think it was in 1961. It was a little pickup truck. That's what Scout, or it was actually International Harvester, came out with the Scout back in 61 as kind of a lighter vehicle, almost an SUV, even though the term SUV had not even come about yet. In fact, I don't believe Bronco was even out yet.
No, it predates Bronco.
Right. So Scout owners say that Bronco stole the Scout ideas. The proper literature says that the Bronco or the Scout inspired the new Bronco. Either way, the Scout owners are very obsessive about their vehicles, and lots of little bits of history. My favorite little item from one of the designers, the original designers, was there, and he showed me on the Scout 2. If you look at the rear window, and this is of the SUV, the rear window kind of angles up at the back. And he said when they first were looking at the prototypes, the spare tire had been put. The engineers put the spare tire in the cargo area, and you could see it through the window. They didn't like that. So on the spot, the designer of the time changed the design of the window so that it slanted up, so you couldn't see the spare tire. And that design carried on through even after the spare tire was put on the back of the car.
So you're talking about the rear side window, or the back?
The rear side window.
Okay.
The back window. The side window of the cargo area.
Okay. So the one that looks kind of like a BMW Hofmeister kink.
Exactly, and now you know why.
I just assumed that was just a style thing that they just like the look. I didn't realize that there was actually a specific functional reason why they did that.
Well, the funny thing is that the new Scout carried it through, even though there's no spare tire there. So they did show the new Scout, which interesting thing about Scout is it's actually an American car company. It is independent. It was started by Volkswagen, and Volkswagen Auto Group is probably, I guess, the only sponsor at the moment, only investor. But the company is theoretically standalone. They are not a division of the Volkswagen Group.
Yeah. So just a little background. International Harvester, which built the original Scouts, at some point in the late 80s, International, which also built trucks. International Harvester built combines and tractors and stuff.
In fact, they did more of that than they did Scouts.
Yeah, and they that was their main business. And then they also built trucks and buses, and that eventually became part of Navistar. And Navistar, a couple of years ago, I think about 3 years ago, got bought by Traton Group. Traton is the truck and bus division of Volkswagen Group. It also includes European brands like Scania and MAN and VW Bus. And so somebody at VW realized that they owned the trademark for Scout. They owned that brand. And when they were looking at building something to compete with Bronco and Rivian and Jeep. They said, hey, we already have this brand that there's still a following out there for this brand, even though we haven't built a Scout and nobody's built a Scout in almost 40 years. And they decided to establish this new division that is a wholly owned subsidiary of Volkswagen Group, but as you said, operates independently.
Exactly. So their design and engineering center is in Novi, Michigan, and they are in the process of building a assembly line or building a factory in South Carolina, outside of Columbia. And they will build the two new vehicles. There is the Terra, which is the new pickup truck, and the Traveler, which is the SUV. And of course, those are names that were Scouts back in the day. And so they've really done a good job of bringing over the style. I mean, when you look at them and you put the original Scouts next to them, they have a lot of similarities. The grille is that same kind of rectangular grille that incorporates the headlights. Of course, these are electric, so there is no need for a grille. So it's just a black panel. And it's, rather than the big round headlights, it's, of course, very cool, narrow LED headlights. But both vehicles have similar style up front. They're fully electric powertrains, dual motor. They haven't given a horsepower rating, but they have said that it could be close to 1,000 foot-pounds of torque. They're estimating 0 to 60 in about 3.5 seconds, and that it should be able to climb basically a 45-degree angle or 100% grade. As long
as you got the right tires.
Impressive. As long as you have the right tires, and it will be available with 35-inch off-road tires. And it is a body-on-frame built with locking differentials, and I mean it is a proper off-roader. It's not just a crossover that looks like a Scout. So they've done a really good job with that. Also, they're not small. They haven't finalized dimensions, and it took me a while to get the dimensions from PR. But the length of the pickup truck is maybe about 3 inches shorter than an F-150 Super Crew.
Wow.
So in the pictures, it doesn't look that big, but it is big. Yeah. And the SUV is a little bit smaller than a Tahoe, but with 2 rows.
Those are big.
Yeah, so they are big, but they have a lot of room inside. It's mainly passenger space, at least in the SUV, but there's a good cargo space. There's also a frunk that will, and both the cargo space of the SUV it's a split gate, so you've got a tailgate you can sit on. In front, it has a sliding panel that comes out, so you can actually have tailgate parties in front as well. But the interesting thing is they're going to start around $60,000, so relatively affordable. That's without incentives, but they don't come out until 2027. So they are a ways away.
Long ways away. I wonder why they chose to do it so early. Like, that's such a long tease.
It is. And I think, part of what the holdup is that they're still building the factory. It makes it, I'm not sure how they're going to keep the interest for 2 years, but apparently 3 years, I guess it is. This is
still 2024.
Yeah, technically 3. Yeah.
It is hard to keep track. It could. So it is quite a ways out, and so obviously they're going to have to find ways, and dribble little bits of information here and there. But I was talking to Chris Benjamin, the designer, and he said that these are 95 to 98% complete. These concepts that we saw, and so this is basically what the vehicles will look like when they come out. And they've already opened over banks.
So this is so we're not going to see some giant change. Like, he confirmed, this is pretty much what we're going to get. It's not one of those like 2 years, 3 years, depending on your point of view from now, we're going to get something that kind of sort of looks like this. It's going to look like this.
This is what they're saying, that these will, he said that dimensions might change a little bit, but styling wise, doesn't expect any changes. Cool. The basic structure, everything should stay the same. The funny thing is 2 things. One, the cheers that went up when they introduced the fact that there would be a front bench seat in the pickup truck and in the SUV. And so you can actually fit 6 people in there. And, this is something that, typically is only on the most basic models. Nobody wants a bench seat.
Yeah,
right? Apparently everybody wants a bench seat.
In a work truck version of a full-size pickup, you get a bench seat.
Exactly. But the other thing that they announced, which was the big news, is there will be a range extender available. Really cool name. They called it Harvester.
Yeah.
Oh, cute.
I thought that was great. And so they say it'll be about 350 miles of range on just battery, but about a little over 500 miles of range with the range extender, which is basically going to be a gas engine, details of which they have not announced. But it was interesting talking to one of the early Scout owners, and he said that, if you're out in the middle of the woods and you run out of fuel, no one can bring you a 5-gallon can of electrons. But you can get a 5-gallon can of fuel, and so you can get out of there. It's like, the biggest cheers from the Scout owners came up when they announced that there would be a gas generator option.
Were there a lot of old school Scout owners there? A ton of them?
I wouldn't say a ton of them, but I would say a couple dozen at least. I mean, they had probably 20 old Scouts to show, that they're on display. And they said, that some of them were talked to as the designs were coming together. So some of them knew a little bit more about the final version than others. Most of the old timers' biggest concern was the fact that it was electric. They just aren't quite on board with that yet. Even though an electric vehicle, because of all the torque and how easily it's controlled, actually makes a really good off-roader. But that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
So one of the other interesting technical details is this thing has a solid rear axle. It doesn't have independent rear suspension. And I know off-roaders, hardcore off-roaders appreciate that. They prefer a beam axle instead of independent suspension because they can get more travel out of it, more articulation out of it. Did they talk much about their decision-making process for that?
Not any more so than they just wanted it to live up to the name of what the Scout was originally able to do. I mean, they wanted a vehicle that could truly go off-roading with all the benefits you could possibly have. That also includes 12 inches of ground clearance.
Yeah.
And it can ford almost 3 feet of water. I mean, it's going to be a true off-roader. It's going to be very interesting to see who gets it. And of course, the most interesting, vote in favor of this thing is how many journalists I have seen post on Facebook that they've already put deposits down on one.
So many people put that deposit down. It was like my feed was full of journalists like, I'm getting one. Everybody wants this.
It's quite the claim to fame.
What about you mentioned this thing is almost the size of a full-size pickup and SUV. Why did they opt to make it so much larger than, say, a Bronco or Wrangler?
They didn't really come out and say why. I think that was, they wanted to make sure it had proper utility. The proportions don't make it look that big.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look. It looks. When you see it in isolation, it looks similar in size, to a Bronco or a Wrangler.
Yeah, it didn't
exactly. I was standing next to it when I was told what the dimensions were, and I was shocked.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't seem that big. And so I think that, I don't know, they didn't really come out and say who their competition is. I mean, obviously Rivian is one of their bigger competitors. F-150 Lightning Silverado EV are clearly in their crosshairs also because they're going after the full-size market, which you think about it, I mean, it is a pretty lucrative market. Mm-hmm. And if they can even get a tiny fraction of that market, they'll do well.
Yeah, I think, and maybe, maybe because they knew they weren't coming out, as soon as they might have liked to. Maybe that's why they decided to go up a size class relative to, say, the Rivian, rather than trying to compete head on with Rivian, which by that point, they will have been in market for like almost 6 years already. Maybe they decide, and because the domestics are, Ford, GM, Stellantis don't really have anything, any kind of true off-roader in their electric lineups yet. There's the Hummer, but that thing is so big and so heavy.
It's so heavy.
It does. That's not really very useful actually as an off-roader because it's so wide for one thing, but also that weight. Maybe they figured this is kind of a white space that they could hit, and not have to necessarily worry about trying to compete, at least initially, with Rivian.
Mm-hmm.
Especially coming out so far in advance. I mean, to give other parties a chance to catch up before they even come out, it's a little dangerous.
Yeah.
But I think Scout is also going to be a somewhat niche brand. I mean, I don't know how many people are going to just try and decide between an F-150 Lightning and a Scout Terra. I mean, I don't know if that's a consideration set or not, but I think, everyone seemed to be of the belief that these things are going to sell very well, at least initially. The bigger question is, how much of a market is there for a true off-roading EV? The fact that there really aren't many. I mean, yes, Rivian is capable,
and they're going to be the only ones right now with a range extender. So
exactly, that's a huge deal for them.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that really does. I mean, well, I guess the upcoming Ram will also have a range extender.
But again, that's
I don't know how much off-roader that is.
Yeah, it's not an off-roader at all. I mean, that's purely an on-road.
At least
truck.
not initially.
At least for now,
well,
yeah. I mean, they could do an electric TRX, but
right, or Power Wagon or something.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Right.
So I was pretty excited about it. The interiors look great. The style of the truck looks good. I think they will have a hit.
And you mentioned I was just going to ask you about the interior. From the photos I saw, it looks really cool and lots of physical controls and vents that you can just reach out and grab to adjust.
They actually called that out in the presentation, that we have buttons and we have knobs.
Yeah.
And all those, I don't know if you saw the pictures, there's like a whole line of rocker switches.
Mm-hmm.
That's all for the climate control.
Yeah.
And they even put an old school compass up in the ceiling.
Yeah, I saw that.
Because
why not?
Excellent. I love it.
I think they'll have a nav system too, but just in case you got a compass,
Well, I mean,
in case you're gonna, if you take it on a Rebel rally, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
it's a perfect car for the Rebel.
Yeah.
Right up in there.
How much you want to bet that prior to 2027, maybe they get Kristen and Jill, to pilot a prototype in the Rebel next year or the year after.
That in the Rebel.
I think it would be a very smart move. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
That thing with the range extender would be awesome out there.
Yeah, that would be amazing because you don't have to worry about the charging quite so much as you would otherwise. Yeah, that would be fantastic in the Rebel.
Yeah.
I like this idea.
Go, Jill.
Or maybe Nicole. Maybe you can enter again.
I don't know. Maybe when I'm done with the Rebel. I don't know.
Awesome. All right. Any other thoughts on? I guess I've recently I've been somewhat skeptical about the prospects for Scout just because it's so far out. And now with VW's relationship with Rivian, with the joint venture they're doing and using Rivian's software platform and their electronic architecture, I've had my doubts as to whether Scout would ever actually make it to production. I've called it 50-50. What do you think? Do you think that that it will that VW will stick with it and actually bring this vehicle to production?
I think they will. I mean, it's the best of both worlds. It's a startup.
Yeah.
I mean, it's acting as a startup. I mean, but it also has the backing of VW Group. They're building a factory for it. They put a pretty hefty investment. And I mean, if they hadn't shown a prototype yet or shown the concept, they may have had the opportunity to back out, and say, or just delay it indefinitely. At this point, I think they pretty much put their hand in the ring. And I mean, I don't see them stopping it at this point. I mean, and it seems that at least initially there's a pretty good reception to it.
Yeah, I think they're going to build it. I think pretty much what you said. There's a lot of support there, Perry, and I think they're pretty committed to it. And it doesn't, even though it is, like you said, a startup, there's some, they've got Volkswagen behind it. So I feel like we're going to get this. I'm hoping we don't get it later than 2027. I'm hoping they stick to that. And I hope it's early 2027 is what I'm hoping.
That would be good.
Yeah.
They don't even know what model year to call it yet. So
Well, it depends if it comes out in January 2027 or December 2027.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So it's a 27 or a 28 model.
Yeah.
One of those.
God, can you imagine a 28 model? It's 2024 right now. I can't even think about it.
I know it's so far away.
Can't think about that.
One other thing I wanted to ask you about was how much they talked about the sales, the retail strategy for this thing, because they are doing direct to consumer. They're not going to have dealers.
They seem to gloss over that. It's obviously in the press materials very briefly that that they're going to be selling directly to the consumer and they won't have dealers. I don't know how they're going to make that work. I guess they've got 3 years to figure it out. Yeah,
well, one thing that'll be interesting is even if they do direct to consumer sales, one of the challenges for the companies that are taking that path is it's relatively straightforward to sell the vehicles direct to consumer, and you can deliver the cars to people's driveways and that sort of thing. But the service network is the challenge, and how do you handle service? Tesla has had struggles with that over the years. And, if you have a Tesla, some stuff that they can do mobile service in your driveway, but if you need to go to a service center, it's often a long wait for an appointment. I know somebody who just recently got rid of his Rivian R1S after about 10 months of ownership, because he was on a road trip and got a warning lamp, that there was a problem with the battery. And then when he went to try and charge it, when he stopped at a DC charger, it wouldn't charge it over 5 kilowatts.
Yeah.
And and after returning from the trip, he called Rivian, to try and make a service appointment. It was like 6 weeks to get it checked out. And there's very few.
Well, it's going to take about that long to charge at 5%. So.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah.
5 kilowatts.
So, I wonder if, even though they're going to sell direct to consumers, if maybe they may, make arrangements with some of the dealer network, across the VW group in the US, VW, Audi, maybe even Porsche dealers that, that want to sign up to be service providers for these vehicles. Even
I was
though they
thinking
can't
the same
sell
thing.
them.
I mean, because they do have a dealer network out there. I mean, at least the Volkswagen Group does. And, they're taking advantage of other parts of the VW group as far as, investments and all of that. I could see a corner section or, certain authorized people to work on Scouts at, VW dealers, or like you said, Porsche dealers.
Yeah.
I can see that as a reasonable solution.
That would save a lot of investment, in setting up separate locations, because that gets really expensive if you've got to set up a separate network of service centers for these things. First of all, it takes time, and it costs a lot of money for the real estate and the equipment and everything. If you can say, if you can go to your existing dealers and say, hey, look, we know you're not going to be able to sell these. We know you're concerned about, loss of service and maintenance revenues on EVs, but how about, if we let you be the service providers for this other brand of vehicles that we're establishing? Maybe that'll be a way that they, kind of overcome some of the friction.
They certainly have that advantage if they want to take advantage of it.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's move on. So a couple of things from Stellantis, a couple of battery-related things. First of all, from Stellantis, the Nexstar Energy, which is their joint venture with LG to manufacture batteries, and they're building a factory in Windsor, Ontario, to make lithium-ion batteries for EVs. This last week started module production there. So the cell production isn't going to start until sometime mid-2025, but they've already started the assembly line that produces the modules, that takes the cells, installs them in boxes, and then those get put into a full battery pack. So they started that assembly line this week, which is kind of the reverse of what happened with GM and their joint venture with LG. They started building cells and then realized that their module assembly lines. They were having issues with those with the supplier of a lot of the automation equipment, and that's one of the big things that caused a lot of delays for GM's EV launches.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. So Stellantis is already building modules, presumably with cells that are either made at LG's plant in Holland, Michigan, or maybe brought in from Korea for now. But they're assembling modules that are going to go into Wagoneer S, Charger, and the Ram Rev, so those, they're making progress. So hopefully you'll get your Wagoneer S in your driveway soon, Nicole. Any updates on that?
Wait, I do have an update. It's not good.
Oh, did you put a deposit down on one?
I did put an update. I did put a deposit down because I back in May, and so the last information I got from them is that things are on track, but vehicle production and delivery dates have been delayed. That's and literally. Vehicle production and delivery dates have been delayed. I have nothing.
Some indefinite future date.
And I didn't question more in this particular email as a consumer. And I was like, but I think we kind of all knew that already. I mean, for NACTOY this week, real quick, we had our NACTOY drive this week, and the Dodge, I just forgot, the Charger EV and the Wagoneer S were supposed to be there, and they were not.
So
it does not bode well for them.
So I feel like we know that's just kind of like, so yeah, they're coming.
I've seen them driving around here.
Have you? Well, that's a good sign.
Yeah, I've seen them on several occasions.
I haven't seen the Wagoneer. I've seen the Charger.
I've seen. Of course,
I have no idea if it's electric or not.
Well, you can tell by the hood. If the hood dips down and it has that wing in the front, it's electric.
There. This was, it was on the side of the highway, and I was driving by.
On the side of the highway, dead.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
So I mean, theoretically, still coming. Like, go Stellantis, build the car while I still need it.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But yeah. So who knows?
All right. Well, and then the batteries for the chargers. Apparently in 2027, Stellantis will start using some semi-solid state cells from Factorial Energy in the Charger Daytona, and presumably it'll just be in one special version because still fairly limited production. I actually spoke with somebody from Factorial a few weeks ago when I was in Austin for the Move America conference. And so the first generation of their cells that they're doing, all the articles I've seen this week, I'll talk about solid state cells from Factorial. They're not exactly solid state. They're semi-solid because the solid state battery, the electrolyte is actually a physically solid material. So it's non-compliant, non-pliable or anything like that. It's a solid, like ceramic type of material that goes in between the anode and the cathode. And the first generation of Factorial cells are what they call semi-solid. So it's a polymer electrolyte. So it's kind of a spongy, plastic, rubbery kind of material that goes in there. But one key change is that it's a lithium metal cell. So most the cells that we have in EVs today, they've got lithium that's in the cathode, and when you charge it, the electrons are stripped off the lithium atoms, and the lithium ions, so the positively charged lithium ions, travel across from the cathode to the anode, and they get embedded in a graphite material that coats the anode, and then they sit there until you discharge the battery. So when you're actually running it, then they travel back from the anode, from the graphite in the anode back to the cathode, and the electrons go back through through your motor, and that's how the battery works. Lithium metal batteries get rid of that graphite in the anode. So what happens is those lithium atoms literally just the ions just go across and they get plated onto the copper current collector and combine with the electrons there. And it's a lower cost, should be more energy dense, should be able to charge faster, have better power, and what Raymond Corver from Factorial told me was those semi-solid state cells should have an energy density of 391 watt hours per kilogram, which by comparison, most current cells that they're using are somewhere in the range of 200 to 250 watt hours per kilogram. So you're looking at more than 50% improvement in energy density. The true solid state cells, when they get those will be up in the 450 watt hours per kilogram range. But right. 390, if they can do that and have these things be reliable, that'd be a pretty significant improvement. And you could see Chargers and other vehicles with some pretty substantial range improvements from those kinds of cells.
Do they charge as fast as non-solid state?
These at least should. Yeah, they should actually be able to charge even faster. So you should be able to get much faster charging. And maybe this is what we'll see in the Banshee version of the Charger. The 3-motor version. The replacement for the Hellcat, because more power, more energy density. And because of the way it works, or the way it's constructed, they can also reuse a lot of the existing production equipment to manufacture these. So it doesn't take an entirely new production line to be able to build these, so a lot less capital expense to transition to these kinds of cells. So we'll see if they can actually do it.
It'd be nice if they can pull it off. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. One more Stellantis story from this week. They announced a big update to their wind tunnel in Auburn Hills. And who knows, maybe they'll even be sticking around in Auburn Hills for a little while instead of abandoning ship there. But they spent almost $30 million to upgrade their wind tunnel, their full-scale wind tunnel there, with a rolling road system. Traditional wind tunnels, you put a car in there, you get a big giant fan with a loop, and it blows the air over the vehicle or the vehicle model. But because of when a car is actually driving down the road, there's interactions between the vehicle and the air and the road moving underneath the vehicle. And in a traditional wind tunnel where the floor of the tunnel doesn't actually move, you lose some of that. So there's some of the things that you actually experience with the vehicle when it's in motion are lost. And so they these new rolling road tunnels, they were originally developed for racing. I think the first rolling road tunnels were done in the 1980s, late 80s, and gives a lot more accurate measurement of the airflow, especially around the lower part of the car. And so now Stellantis has their own rolling road wind tunnel. GM is upgrading their tunnel. Ford built a new tunnel in Dearborn for the same thing. So now almost everybody, is getting into rolling road tunnels.
I was going to ask how many other OEMs, because of course this doesn't say that in there. So Stellantis is kind of in the middle of the party for this one. Not everybody.
I think so. Yeah. It's not clear exactly what the timing is for some of the others. I know Ford was building an all new wind tunnel in Dearborn, and GM was upgrading their tunnel that they have at their tech center. And I'm not sure exactly when those are supposed to come online. So Stellantis may actually be the first, at least of the Detroit automakers, to get their rolling road tunnel running.
So how much would that change engineering, man, Sam? How much would this? The release says it's 10% of total real world aerodynamic drag comes from the wheels and the tires, and it will now be able to measure that. How much would what would you change? Would you change that? Literally, would it be the wheels that it would let them change?
You can be the wheels, the tires, the tires shape and tread design. So, in a traditional tunnel, the car is just sitting there.
Right.
And if the tires aren't rolling,
right.
The way the air flows around it and through the wheels, is very different than if the wheels are turning. When the wheels are rotating, the air flows through the wheels, has to flow through the wheels to cool the brakes. And also, just because that the side of it is turning, the air, as the air flows over it, if you imagine, a wheel it's just standing still, the air flowing over it is going to flow one way. But if you start turning that wheel while the air is flowing across it, that interaction is going to be really different.
So would it really just be then the change for that 10% of that drag that comes from that situation? The only changes they can make would be like to the treads on the tire and like the
wheel shape.
The wheel design, I would imagine as well.
Yeah, the wheel design.
Wheel design. Okay, I was curious. I'm like, wait, what do we change? So just be wheel design and tire. Literally, they can change that.
and also the body work around the wheel arches, the shape of the wheel arches, because that all of those pieces kind of go together to impact that interaction.
I wasn't thinking. I was curious. Just trying to figure out how much of it would be about changing the wheel and the tire versus the body of the vehicle around the wheel, but even the body could get
all of it,
as a result of this. Okay.
I mean, I know we've been in cars where they talk about the air curtain, where they actually have air flowing, through a vent in front of the wheel well to keep the air from getting turbulent when it goes by the wheel, and as well as, I mean, I would imagine, it probably affects downforce as well. If there's, if the wheel is turning, at 60 miles an hour, there's got to be, it's got to be affecting the air in that wheel well.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I don't know if they direct the air around it. I mean, it's kind of fascinating what they.
I think
it'd be interesting to see what they could do with it.
Right? Like, you know what I want to see? I want Stellantis to show me. I want to see like a picture of a before and after. Like, this is the wheel we had, and this is what we fit in with, and we reduced that 10%. We reduced it by another X% by changing this little thing. I always find that fascinating. It's like, yes, so we have this thing, and it was a 0.1 degree, and we made it a 0.2 degree, and suddenly all these amazing thing happens by these tiny little engineering changes. I'd love to know how much this causes them to actually change things,
Yeah. Well, I mean, as another example of aerodynamics, if you look at, almost any modern car, especially if you look around the rear edge, the rear corners of the car, you will find all kinds of little bumps and fillets and things like that might seem like they were done purely for stylistic reasons, to shape the back end. But in fact, most of those are done for aerodynamics, to control because if, the ideal shape of, aerodynamically for anything moving through the air is kind of a teardrop shape.
Right.
But, if obviously that's not practical on a real world car. So what they try to do is they try to emulate the behavior of the air coming off to get the air coming off the back edge of the car to behave as though there was a teardrop there.
Okay.
And so you'll see, like if you look like along the rear edges of the car, you'll see little bumps sometimes, almost little spoiler like things. And that's there specifically to control that airflow coming off the back of the vehicle, so that it doesn't curl around too much behind the car, cause turbulence, because that then creates like a suction on the back of the car and creates more drag. And so they're just trying to avoid that. So there's all kinds of little details.
I love the little engineering details when they point those out to you. Always fascinate me. I'm thinking, who thought this? We'll put this little bump right here. Little bump will take care of all those problems at one little bump.
Yep. All right. Let's move on to Ford. They had a couple of announcements this week, particularly relating to EVs. The 2025 model year Mach-E got some price cuts, some equipment changes, got a heat pump now finally. Yeah.
That's always a nice thing.
Yeah. And I think the base model Mach-E, the standard range Mach-E is down by like $4,000 now, I think.
Didn't they lower the price of the Mach-E last year as well?
They did.
Yeah.
When they switched to using an LFP battery pack, a lithium iron phosphate battery pack in the standard range version, they dropped the price, and now they've dropped it again, probably just trying to boost sales. and so and like I said, for the first time now, it's got a heat pump, and because of packaging the heat pump system in the front there, the front trunk has gotten smaller. Do you remember when they first launched the Mach-E and they were showing it, filled with ice and shrimp and stuff, for tailgate parties? Yeah. Well, I guess they found out that most people weren't actually using the frunk very much.
What?
So the frunk has gotten smaller to make room for the heat pump system underneath it.
And in the winter, that's going to be a nice thing to have.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely helps.
The funny thing is, the small frunks that we have on EVs, although I feel like they really truly are a bit of a novelty. I know like the F-150 is a giant frunk. Like that one's usable. Like that's bigger than a trunk on half the vehicles out there. We have these little frunks. You're like, I don't know how much I'm going to use that. Like,
I mean, in most cases, they're big enough to hold like your charging cable.
Right. And so
and
how
that's about
useful? I mean, cool. But yeah, if you can get the heat pump instead, I would take that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see it being useful on an SUV though, because I mean, if you don't have a cargo cover, it's a great secure place if you've got room to put whatever you want to secure.
If it's a smallish thing, yes.
So the base price now starts at $36,495.
Wow.
So that's good. And then it's got an updated version of Blue Cruise, version 1.5 of Blue Cruise, which now has fully automatic lane changes now. So you don't have to tap it's not lane change on demand, but it'll, if there's a gap and the vehicle in front of you is going slower than your set speed, it can automatically change lanes for you.
Super Cruise does that, and I find it really cool yet oddly disconcerting. Like I am obviously paying attention. We're like, wait, we're changing lanes. Okay, it freaks me out a little bit every time.
Yeah. So now Ford's got that. We'll see if the latest versions can actually hold a lane any better than they did before. And
it is interesting
get through curves.
I asked the Blue Cruise folks at the Ford Expedition. The Expedition, I think, has version 1.4.
Yeah.
And I was trying to find, so what's the difference between 1.2 and 1.4? And she basically said that you go longer now without it failing. Or not failing, that's not the right term.
Without it handing off
without it disconnecting,
Yeah.
And so, so they're aware that happens. And so with every new version, they're fixing whatever has been causing it to disengage.
Yeah.
So by the time we get to 2.0, it'll be perfect.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I'll have to get my hands on one of these and see if it can get through that curve at Jackson Road and I-94.
You have one spot at your test spot where none of them can get through?
Yeah, up till now, every Blue Cruise vehicle I've tried through that particular section always hands back control. It always wants me to put my hands on the wheel at that spot.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It's a pretty tight turn.
It is. But, I mean, Super Cruise handles it.
Ooh.
Yeah, Super Cruise gets through there with no problem. But Blue Cruise does not. We'll see if the new one can.
Come on, Blue Cruise, step up your game.
Yeah, the other thing they changed is they've got this Sport Appearance package available now, which basically lets you make your non-GT Mach-E look like a GT Mach-E. So you get
which is all what most people want anyway.
Yeah,
you just wanted to look cool. You didn't care about all the sportiness. You just wanted to look cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's already fast enough. Just wanted to look a little better, look a little more like a Mustang,
a little fancier.
Yeah. And then the other thing from Ford is Ford Pro announced some updates. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about Silverado EV for 2025. Got some new trim levels with cheaper variants. The new base work truck for the Silverado is starting at like $57,000 and change. And that was the same price as the Lightning Pro. Well, the Lightning Pro now is going to be cheaper again because you don't want it to be the same price as that Silverado because it's not going to have as much range. And so now they're taking care of that by lowering the price and by more than $7,000 for the base Lightning Pro. So now it's going to be just under it's going to be $47,780, which puts it with the increase in price on the gas F-150, puts them both at the exact same price for a 4x4 crew cab, $47,780.
Interesting.
The thing that is crazy, and I'm looking at your story, Sam, it's $9,700 less than this upcoming standard range Silverado EV work truck. $9,700. Oof.
Yeah, but that Lightning only has 240 miles of range.
Yeah.
That
How much
the Silverado is probably going to be over 300.
Okay, but still,
But as a work truck, does it
$100?
make that much of a difference?
Yeah, it's like you're not road tripping in this. This is your local
That's
Right.
what I'm thinking.
construction area,
if it's
service
if
area.
it's a proper work truck and used as a work truck, it's sitting in a garage somewhere charging every night.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So just an idea.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think for a lot of customers, especially for Ford Pro customers, fleets, the 240 miles of range is going to be fine. And so, that lower price point, will make it much more competitive against
That's
the
a big
Silverado.
deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, it has a bigger frunk than the Silverado, so you can pack more tools and stuff in there.
Like more ice and shrimp.
Although it's a little more it's a little more challenging to do the ice and shrimp in the Lightning, because you've got the front fascia goes with the hood, so you have a lower liftover
You have to
height.
kind of pile it towards the back.
You don't have like that bucket, the cooler style shape. Yeah.
You need
just
to
have a-
sell, how they sell the stuff for the bed where you can like extend your bed and it like holds stuff in the little
Yeah.
grill.
You need a little front
You need a
partition there.
Front, yeah,
a front extender.
Yeah.
extender for your shrimp party.
I bet that's something no one has ever said ever.
Okay. What else? Let's see. I mentioned I was in Korea, and I didn't do any driving while I was over there, but I did have to I spent most of the time there in Seoul, but I did have to go down to Daegu, which is about 150 miles south of Seoul, to speak at a conference, and get to take the high-speed express train from Seoul to Daegu and back. Oh, man, I love trains that go like 165 miles an hour and nice and smooth and quiet. It's kind of the opposite of taking the Wolverine from Ann Arbor to Chicago.
Yeah, I would say. Of course, anywhere in Asia, Europe, pretty much anywhere but here. The trains are pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean the high-speed trains that they have in Korea are based on the same design as the French TGV. And they've actually been tested at speeds up to 200 miles an hour, and on some routes they will approach 200 miles an hour. I think I just happened to check the speed with my phone using a GPS speedometer app at one point, and it was going 165. So I can't complain about that.
No, that's a good way to get around.
Yeah,
So we don't have it.
and it's a lot easier than flying down there. It's like, if you're flying from Detroit to Chicago, it takes about the same amount of time as taking the train, because you have to go, you have to drive to the airport, park, go through all security and all boarding and all the other nonsense, and then get from O'Hare back downtown. Whereas the train stations tend to be right downtown. So and I think, when we were coming back, we walked into the train station like 10 minutes before departure time, walked to the platform, got right on the train. It was great. It's perfect. All right. And one other item, Costco. Do you guys shop at Costco?
I do not shop at Costco. I used to, but I have not lately.
What about you, Perry?
Yes, definitely. We do
Perry,
shop at
you still
Costco.
there? Oh,
I'm still here. Yeah, sorry.
okay. Do you shop at Costco?
Yes.
Do you get your gas at Costco? Do you get in line for cheap gas at Costco?
My wife does that. Yes.
Okay,
In
so does
fact,
mine.
she will wait. She will wait until it's time. To wait to the last second to fill up, and then go get fill up the truck with the cheapest gas you can.
Yeah.
Which is Costco almost always.
Well, Costco is now getting into EV charging. They opened up their first charging station at a new store they opened a few months ago in Washington State. And I'm guessing that they're probably going to be putting a bunch more of these in over the next couple of years. But but they
Is it their own brand, or is it they partner with somebody?
It's branded as Costco.
They say it's a partner. It says they partner with something called Electric Era, a Seattle-based EV charging company.
Yeah. So Electric Era supplies the equipment and also the management, the software management platform for these. These are battery integrated chargers. So they're DC chargers that will charge up to 200 kilowatts, but they have a battery built into it. And I think for these, I think they said that from the time they started the permitting until they were up and running was something like 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, it was really fast.
Wow.
I think the typical time in here is
quick.
17 weeks. And this was the installation time, according to this, was like not even, what is that, like a third of that? That's crazy.
Yeah, well, one of the big challenges with putting in DC charging is finding a location that has enough power to supply, high power charging. And a lot of times, one of the big things that causes delays is if you have to get the local utility to upgrade the substation so you can have enough power. I mean, if you want 10 chargers that do 350 kilowatts each, you've got to have 3.5 megawatts of power going to that site. And not that many places have that much readily available. So you end up with huge delays, just because of the waiting for the utility to be able to get their hands on transformers to upgrade the substation. With these battery integrated chargers, we did a research study earlier this year for a company doing these, and it's amazing the difference in time. And the other thing is you avoid, for the station operators, you can also avoid a lot of demand charges, for peak power that commercial customers have to pay. So these things can draw in power from the grid at a much slower rate, and they're continuously charging the internal battery in the charger. And then when you plug in your car, it grabs that burst of power from the battery instead of from the grid.
That's
Interesting.
cool.
And then when it's not in use, it's filling up the battery again.
Yep. So the battery.
So do you have to have a Costco membership to use one?
Probably.
They said.
It doesn't say, but I'm guessing you'd probably have to have a.
I would
Costco
think
membership.
so too. But it is a smart. I mean, I still remember when I first heard about the Nissan Leaf back when that was going to be the first one. Talking to Nissan PR, and he was explaining how it's going to change everything, because you want to go to a gas station when you're at the grocery store or you're somewhere, you can actually charge that. And it's like it's taken us a very long time to get to that point, but to have at Costco where you're in there for sometimes 45 minutes to an hour, to have a DC
and that's
charger
after you
outside
do your
is
shopping.
perfect.
That's just waiting.
I know.
to check out.
Waiting in line to check out and finding how many free food samples you can find. But
So people.
But yeah, I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, and this is why for example, GM is partnering with EVgo to install chargers at grocery stores. They had that partnership that they announced for a couple years back for 2,700 chargers, and most of those are going at grocery stores where people you're usually there for at least 20 to 30 minutes. So you pull up, and that's usually long enough to to top off your battery once or twice a week. So this. It's good to see them doing this, and I think we'll probably be seeing a lot more of this. Here we go. See,
I couldn't find anything saying if you had to be a member, but I bet you do.
I would
Costco previously, Costco previously had installed chargers starting in the late 1990s for like the EV1 and the original RAV4 EVs that Toyota sold, and some others. And they had chargers at 64 of their stores in Arizona, Georgia, California. But those all got removed due to lack of use along the way after those vehicles went away.
When you think about that, that was a long time ago, like the late 19, you know what I mean? Like that's in the EV years, that's a long time.
It's a whole different world.
And it was a while before new EVs showed up, and so now they're finally getting back into this. They plan to open fast chargers at over 20 warehouses, and I'm guessing that number is probably going to go up.
I would think,
Good usage. I bet it will. Yep.
All right. And then you mentioned the Nactoid drive earlier, Nicole, with
Yes.
the absence of the Wagoneer S and Charger.
Charger.
Anything else interesting there?
No, I mean we had a lot. We have vehicles I can't talk about driving yet. They had the Kia K4 for us there to drive, which was so we got an early look at that. They had pretty much most of the vehicles that were on our semi-finalist list were able to be there. It was fun to drive them all. We had, it's always great to be able to drive all those vehicles back to back, and to get into some. I hadn't driven a Porsche Macan EV. That was cool to finally get my hands on that and give that a little spin. The Panamera, because I just don't drive a lot of Porsches, but they had everything there, and it was a good drive in that we had most of the vehicles that were eligible were there, and the voting has already started. Our ballots went out yesterday.
Yesterday, I think.
Yeah, so the ballots are already out there, and then everybody's voting. We'll pick our favorites, so we will narrow it down to 3 trucks, 3 SUVs, and 3 cars that we will be announcing at the LA Auto Show in just a few more weeks, like the middle of November, just before Thanksgiving. So we'll have the big announcement on those. I know you weren't able to make it because you were in Korea, but what's your bet? What do you think? Do you have any that you think are going to make it? Are you like, this one's got to make it?
Let's see. For cars, I would bet on the Civic Hybrid.
Okay.
Probably the Panamera.
I like the Panamera. That was fun to drive.
Has a Porsche ever won a NACTOY award?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Well, part of the thing is that in the grand context of everything that we consider, we also you're looking at the value of the vehicle, like the value the for your dollar.
Right.
Porsches are definitely very
it's a challenge for that.
It's a different value proposition.
Different value proposition. Yeah. So I think if you look at it purely on that, Porsche faces an uphill battle, but that doesn't mean that they can't, and it doesn't mean that enough people won't be like, yeah, it's expensive, but in the grand scheme, for a pricey luxury car, it's worth it. You know what I mean? So that
you're getting something for the money.
Exactly. You're paying a lot of money, but are you getting value for that for what it's supposed to be? Does it do what it's supposed to do and deliver, considering what you pay for it? So I think that's what people are trying to figure out. So I like the Panamera. I think that has a good chance of making it in. Yeah.
And the Camry, I think, would be another one.
The Camry, that's your bet.
Yeah. Did Cadillac bring out the Celestiq?
Cadillac did not bring the Celestiq. So we did not have the Celestiq to drive. We did not have the BMW
M5.
M5, I think the M5. We didn't have the Wagoneer S and Charger EV, and the Mercedes. I've forgotten the exact.
The E-Class.
Yes, we did not have the Mercedes to drive. So those were the vehicles that we did not have to drive. Everything else was there. We even had the Rivian R1T. The truck was there. So we had a good number of vehicles there. So it's and everyone had plenty of time to drive. So it'll be interesting. I don't know. I don't know who's going to win this one. I'm really curious.
And for trucks, there's 5 candidates. You got Ford Ranger, GMC Sierra EV, the Ram 1500, the Rivian R1T, and the Toyota Tacoma.
Yeah.
I don't think the Ram is going to make it into the finals.
Okay.
I think Ranger and Tacoma will both be there.
Ranger should definitely be there.
Yeah, Ranger and Tacoma. But then what with the third one? Because it's
Sierra or Rivian. I would say probably the Rivian.
My gut's Rivian. We'll see if we're right. I think Rivian too. And then for I think the toughest category anymore is really SUVs because the market's so focused on those.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good SUVs.
So does ID Buzz fit into as an SUV?
It's utility vehicles, not SUV.
Yeah, utilities. So it's ID Buzz, and they had a bunch of ID Buzzes there, and like every configuration, so we could drive so we've all had a chance to get behind the ID Buzz. Every single one of these vehicles.
I hope Joe can get me in one this week for a day.
Yeah, they will. They'll get you in reach out and make sure they know.
Yeah, I already did. So you got the Chevy Equinox EV, Honda Prologue, Volvo EX90, Hyundai Ioniq 5N, the Hyundai Santa Fe, Wagoneer S, Lincoln Nautilus, Macan EV, Toyota Land Cruiser, and ID Buzz.
Mhm.
So what are the odds that the finalists could be all electric? Would that be the first time?
Last year, I think we had. Did we have that happen last year?
There were of the 9 finalists across the 3 categories, I think 6 were electric.
Yeah, we had a lot of EVs last year. So I feel
think
like there's a lot that could make it from this list. I think the EX90 could make it. I think the Nautilus could make it. I think the Buzz, the Land Cruiser, and the Macan could all make it. I feel like those are the top contenders.
What about the Equinox?
I don't know. I think, you know what? We were talking about the value proposition. A lot of people like the value of the Equinox. So
out of everything in that list, especially the EVs, I mean, that one's got the best value proposition.
It has the best value, but is it the best? So it's a value.
I think it's a really good vehicle.
Yeah, it is good. It is good. Yeah, I don't really think there's a bad one. I mean, at this point, you're narrowing it down to this few candidates: 10 vehicles for car and for utility, and then 5 for truck. You've narrowed it down pretty far, so you're not generally looking at bad cars.
And I love the Ioniq 5N.
Yeah,
but, I'm not sure that just this special variant of the 5N or of the 5, is necessarily enough to stand out from this group.
Stand out? I know. I'm really lost.
It is such an impressive car, though.
Yeah.
I cannot decide. I look at this list, and every time I look at the list again, I think, oh, maybe this is a good one. I can't come up with 3 because I don't know how everyone's going to vote. There's so many reasons. There's a reason to vote for almost every single one of these vehicles. You know what I mean?
And there's also reasons for some of these to not vote for them, like having touchscreen vent controls. I think is a really good reason not to vote for at least one of these vehicles.
Big black mark on the Lincoln.
Lincoln.
And I've got a Land Cruiser in the driveway right now that we'll talk about next week.
Okay.
What did you think of the Macan?
I really liked it. Now, I got to be full disclosure. I don't drive Porsches very often. We don't get them really ever in the fleet in New England. So unless I get invited to a drive program or it's an event like this, I never get a chance to drive them. So I made sure to get some good seat time in both the Porsches that were there. I love the Macan. I thought it was great. I think it's, you're talking about that value. I don't think it's expensive because it's a Porsche, but it's not that I got to remortgage my house kind of expensive, which I think makes it more reasonable for the car that it is. And it's absolutely beautiful to drive. It's so much fun to drive that little thing. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm probably leaning towards the Equinox. Maybe if I can get my hands on the Buzz and try that out, that one.
You should be able to, because actually, side note, reach out to Volkswagen if you haven't, because I know they were trying to get it into.
I'll send Mark a note tomorrow.
Yeah, they should be able to get you in it, even if it's a short and drive. You know what I mean?
And that's and the Santa Fe is really good. Mm-hmm. The EX90 is really good. This is going to be a tough category to vote.
Right? That's just it. It's like I look at it like, oh, I could do that one. Oh, but that other one's good. Oh, but that other one's really good. That's my tough category, is figuring out which of those. So therefore, I have no idea how the jury is going to vote because there's such strong vehicles in there. So, and then it's going to come down to 3 that it's going to be impossible to pick from.
Yeah, exactly. But it's always tough when you get down to those last 3.
Because you're down to the best of the best. When you get down to 3 vehicles, you really have narrowed it down quite a bit, and they're always good. They're always good.
Yep. All right. Any other thoughts on NACTOY for this year?
No, none for me.
All right. Well, we have one listener question before we wrap it up from Wes. Wes asks, I remember hearing back when hybrids started coming out that there was a concern due to the risk of electrocution. How has this changed 25 years later? What is the risk like now for first responders or those who want to tinker? Are there now standards in place for automakers to minimize this risk? Is there anything drivers should know in case they're in an accident? So as a driver, probably not. There's probably nothing you need to worry about. A lot of effort's been put into making high voltage electrification systems as safe as possible. Everything that's high voltage is bright orange. But there's really not much as a driver in case you get into a crash that you can do other than just, as soon as you safely can, get out of the vehicle.
Right.
And step away from it. But that's true regardless of what you're driving.
I was going to say whether it's electrons or whether there's a big tank of flammable liquid in the back of it.
Yeah, exactly.
You can safely get out of the car. Safely get out of the car. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So probably the biggest risk is for first responders. If they have to do something, if they have to use jaws of life to cut into a vehicle to get somebody out that's injured or trapped inside the vehicle. They do training, for especially for firefighters and so on, to train them how to deal with these vehicles. All hybrids, actually all vehicles with high voltage electrical systems have a big orange plug, a big orange fuse that you can pull out, that is located somewhere in the vehicle, usually somewhere in the trunk area. In the cargo area or underneath, that basically disconnects the battery from everything else in the vehicle. But they usually, they also get training from the manufacturers. Manufacturers provide training materials on these vehicles on where there are cables that you don't want to cut. But generally anything that is, until you've pulled out that big fuse, you don't want to cut any of those orange wires. Because that can get ugly. But that's really about it. There's really not much risk of electrocution for the most part.
And I think in terms of first responders, I think over the years they've been better and better about educating first responders so that people have the knowledge they need to make the right decisions. So I think it's much safer for them just because of the knowledge and how well marked things are. Like you're saying about the bright orange, like this is the problem. Don't go here kind of thing, so that they know where to pull fuses and they know what could potentially be dangerous to them. So I think they're more well marked, which is again about information, and they're more well educated. Again, it's the information's just provided to them. So it's much safer. And yeah.
Yeah. I remember when
electrified vehicles have become a lot more common than they ever were also. Yeah. So, I mean, it's, between hybrids, plug-in hybrids and electrics, there's a very good chance that that's what someone's going to be in one.
Yeah. Right. Toyota has sold something like 34 million hybrids over the last 25 years. So they're out and about.
The odds are there.
Yeah. There's a good chance that, most firefighters have encountered at least one hybrid at some point in their career, if not multiple. It's not really that much of an issue. I remember when Chevy first launched the original Volt in late 2010, one of the things they did was they went around, they did a tour around the country. I think they, in collaboration with the National Fire Protection Association, and they went and did training sessions for firefighters all around the country, not only to teach them how to deal with the high voltage system, but also on that particular car, because it had a lot of high strength steel and so on, showing them, if you need to cut, here's the places where you can cut, to be able to get into the vehicle, that sort of thing. So manufacturers are taking that into account when they launch new vehicles, if there's anything particularly new or noteworthy that responders should be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Perry, thank you for jumping in at the last minute, filling in for Robbie.
No problem. Always glad to help.
Yeah. And it was good to hear your firsthand views on the Scout. And hopefully over the next few months, we'll learn more and more about that. I'll have to give Kathy a call and see if I can maybe go visit their engineering facility and learn a little more.
I would think they should have, since we're local here, they should have some sort of tour or walk around to the car up in the factory or at the design center. It'd be fun.
All right. And Nicole, thank you as always.
Yes. Wonderful to be here.
All right.
All right.
See you all next week. Bye.
Bye.
Everyone's talking about AI these days, right? This season on Compiler, we're diving deep into how AI is reshaping the world we live in. Join us for a new season of Compiler, an original podcast from Red Hat. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.